Good morning,
Exactly.
good afternoon, good evening, and good night, whatever, wherever you are watching. This is the third episode of the Launchpad podcast. We got a whole 2 seconds in before I screwed something up. So thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. And I want to introduce everybody to our guest today, which is Darren from Barrana. How you going, Darren? Thanks for coming on and joining us.
You're welcome, Stuart. Good to talk with you.
And am I pronouncing it correctly? Barrana?
Barrana's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
because I always think of piranha,
Yes.
but then I thought, oh, maybe that's actually not how it's meant to be said. But okay, Barrana, that's good. Um, you're you. I wanted to kind of get you on, Darren, because I think of you as kind of like me, but 100 times better, basically in some ways. Um, in terms of like we build websites. Some of the websites that we build are, we think they're kind of complicated and they do some cool stuff. But you're sort of building. Well, I wouldn't. Would you describe yourself as a web developer, or you're kind of more like
Uh,
software development?
More software developer. So we would actually work really hand in hand with what you do because we don't want to touch marketing, and we know how good you guys are at your marketing. And yeah, we just do custom software or bespoke software development. Apps, web applications, SaaS products, and blockchain. But basically, we just use software to solve problems
Yep.
when we look at it.
And so you could be potentially developing developing some kind of software or an app. It could be on someone's local system. It could be a
Yeah.
cloud-based thing. It could be
Yeah.
really anything, couldn't it?
Yes, it could be all of the above. We had that with a client that we're almost finished working with right now, and we did it over 6 different applications. So like iPad, iPhone, Android, um, Apple did it on Windows and a web app. So it depends on what the solution is that needs to be provided.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. What is your favorite, or is there something that you sort of shudder when someone goes, "Oh, they want me to do another iOS app or something like that"?
We want to tackle things that can add value to a community. So we look at it. What's the point of just building something that is already out there and doesn't add some value to someone's life or a community? It needs to be something different, needs to be outstanding, needs to have a good story and can make a difference and where you can grow a community. So we've been doing websites for 15 years, but we realize there's so many better companies out there doing websites like yourselves and who have mastered it. I don't think we do that very well, but we do software well. So I don't want to tackle websites, even though we know how to do them, but just don't do them very well. So
Hmm.
I think you just got to acknowledge what you do well and what you don't do well, and let those who are really good at what they do what they do.
Yeah, fair enough. What's
Yeah.
I saw on your website you mentioned it before when you were introducing yourself um, about blockchain.
Yeah.
And that's probably something where, anybody that has heard about cryptocurrency, which, you would have to be living under a rock for the past couple of years not to have heard about cryptocurrency because it's become a very mainstream topic. What kind of stuff are you building on blockchain?
Oh, just to go back a step for those who don't understand what blockchain is,
Good idea.
that's probably a good place to start. Well, blockchain is really the technology that runs behind cryptocurrency, like you just said. So look at it as like an Apple computer or a Windows computer. That's like the base software that's behind your computer. Try and put it in simple language. So you have Windows to run your Windows computer, then you'll install like Office inside of it, which would be something like your crypto. You install that software on top of the base software. So it's really like a glorified and more secure database, allows you to be able to do peer-to-peer transactions. So I can deal with you directly without having to have a middleman in the middle. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. So it just allows you to transact without needing a middleman.
And
But
so,
there's a whole stack more to it as well, but keep it simple.
and so, and let's. I want to talk about this some more. I'm glad you actually kind of went back to explain this because this is probably going to be of more interest to some people in some ways. Um, when blockchain and crypto first kind of started to become sort of a mainstream thing, um, most people speak about blockchain in terms of coins, cryptocurrency, right?
Yes.
But and I suppose in some ways maybe that's a good thing because I assume this is probably the easiest concept for people to understand. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to kind of give you my understanding of blockchain. Blockchain is kind of like a distributed ledger of records, and a bank, like if I send $100 to you, that goes through a bank, and the bank is kind of the centralized gatekeeper of that information, and it goes, yep, cool, I took $100 from Stuart and then I gave $100 to Darren, and the bank is that middleman, like you were saying, the kind of primary source of truth. With a
Yep.
blockchain, in that same example, there is no bank, but there is this distributed. Are they the nodes?
Yes.
The
Correct.
nodes. It's a
Yep.
distributed set of nodes, which are essentially computers, I suppose.
Computers. Correct.
Um, and they all must reach a consensus on what I guess the change of information which has occurred, and that's encrypted along the way. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
it means if I was a bad guy and I wanted to mess with the money that was going between me and you, even though I'm sure it would still be very hard to do, it's much easier to try and attack a single bank entity and try and disrupt them versus trying to attack uh, 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 of these distributed ledgers where they all essentially will agree on the same thing or be near impossible to do that. Is that sort of the nuts and bolts of it?
100%. You got it.
And so I think um, with that sort of analogy in mind, it's very easy to understand why. Because for a really long time, I was like, oh, blockchain, crypto, they talk. I don't really understand why they're different things, but the blockchain is the mechanism underneath. It just happens that probably the most common and most well-known use of blockchain is running cryptocurrency and handling transactions and things like that, right?
Correct. Yes.
So now that we've kind of cleared that up, what are some non-cryptocurrency projects that you're working on that involve blockchain?
Okay. So one was we were doing an international hospital management system, and the reason why where blockchain fits into that is because inside a hospital, as you're going through with a patient, time and date stamp and making sure that that is 100% right is really important for insurance claims. So the reason why they wanted to use the blockchain in there was so that they had that set up on the distributed ledger, so that every time something happened in their hospital management system, it was entered into the blockchain, and then they had that distributed ledger. They knew authenticity of the transactions and the dates that were going on, which actually helps reduce their insurance costs and their insurance premium. So there's one. There's another one that we're just starting on the process at the moment of, and that's the ability to do real estate on the blockchain. Now, not in Australia, that's over in the United States. So the ability to be able to take a group of properties, be able to create a token for, say, I'll give you the easiest, I'll put it into a dollar value, make it simple. Say you had 10 properties and they were worth $1 million each, so it's $10 million. And then the company says, okay, we're going to issue 10 million tokens at $1 each. So they're basically splitting up the real estate into small little chunks, and the real estate now goes up to $11 million. So now it's, your token value has gone up 10 cents, gone up 10%. So, to be able to make it, more affordable to do real estate. So that's another one.
Do you mean that people can purchase fractions of real estate?
Yes, fractions of real estate. Can't
Wow.
do that in Australia, not yet. But I see.
Are you allowed to discuss who's doing that? I feel
No,
like I've
I
heard
can't.
of
No,
this. You can't.
no,
Okay,
no. I just wanted to give you an overview and
that's
the
fine.
basics. There is, I see real estate being a really big use case for blockchain as we move forward, because you've got the contracts, the smart contracts in place. I see it, and it's happening already in places like Alibaba with the shopping. You can already get your finance and get all of that approved. Imagine the blockchain doing this for you. You basically walk up to the front of a house, say like the front door here. There's a sign there. You click the Q code on the sign that's out the front, and literally you can see all the details. You can already have the finance done. You can literally buy it, on the spot. All the contracts can be exchanged without needing lawyers in the middle, and the ability for the deed to be able to transfer straight over to you if you purchased it. So without having to have all the middlemen in the middle. So all the transactions that happen in the middle and the time frame it takes to transfer the money could all be done on the blockchain through the distributed ledger.
Yeah, wow.
So there's just a couple, offhand. There's I see another version of it being like, say, non-fungible tokens like the NFTs. Imagine your birth certificate could be done as an NFT, because you can use that. I can see social media moving to that. Go and have a look at some of the stuff that Gary Vee's been talking about around NFTs and social media, and where the progress is heading in that space. So there's lots of applications, and more so than just minting photos and things like that.
Yeah.
There's lots of
What do you build on a particular blockchain technology? I assume you're not building your own blockchains.
No, we're possible. So, like you work mainly with WordPress, correct, for your websites? Yeah. So there's some technology out there that's been built like WordPress, but for blockchain. So it can be already pre-built, and then you just have to customize it like you would build on a WordPress website, and you just have to customize, the chain to be able to suit what is required in the process. So there is some of those out there. Building on your own chain takes time, but there is technology out there. There's a number of different codes out there where you can utilize what's already been built, and then adjust and use the platforms appropriately. Some of the new changes that are coming up with Ethereum, which is another chain, when they bring that forth, I think we're in for a bit of a ride in that space, Stuart, especially around shopping carts and transactions and stores, and lots of different things coming up in that space in the near future.
Because my understanding is that one of the, especially when you start talking about large volumes of transactions, and I say transactions in terms of the transaction of information, whether that involves currency or something else, you're having to send this information out through these nodes and have it do the consensus, and there's a whole lot of work going on. That example that you gave, we had 10 million slices of real estate, for example. That's going to create a lot of transactional load on that blockchain network, right?
Yeah.
So my understanding is that one of the big limiting factors is, and I believe this is the case for Ethereum, is the speed and the cost of being able to do that transaction. Yes. That was one of the, I saw a keynote presentation for a blockchain called Solana.
Yes.
And have you heard of it?
Yes.
And one of their main things was that it was just so incredibly cheap per transaction to use that. And so my understanding is that, okay, there's trading of cryptocurrency just like any other currency, which can, influence the price, the value of that coin. But in another aspect, my understanding is that if say, for example, all the developers, people like yourselves, start building their blockchain projects on Solana versus Ethereum versus, Dogecoin or whatever it is,
yes.
Then the value of that can also influence the value of the coin as well. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, it comes down to use at the end of the day. There's demand versus supply. the ability to be able to transact and the speed of the transaction as well. So you're right. I think Ethereum's about to make a major input. I think they're almost finished their final trials. September anyway, that'll be done. And you look at the speed of, say, your credit cards right now. You do your credit card processing with MasterCard and Visa card. Solana, you just mentioned Solana. Solana's speed is incredibly faster than that network and the ability to be able to do transactions per second. So they leave MasterCard for dead. The new Ethereum times that by thousands faster than MasterCard and Visa. So they're really setting up to take on the current, I would say, fiat system of processing transactions. It's going to make a completely different new world coming up. Some of it hard to say, but let's have that conversation again in a couple of months once that starts to get inputted and starts rolling out. I think we're going to see a lot of companies moving away and moving into the blockchain to be able to process transactions, stores, all sorts of different things.
Well, it's funny because presumably when the speed and probably most importantly the cost to do each transaction goes through the floor, why would you? Well, every time I process a transaction on Stripe, it costs 30 cents plus 1.75%, which I think is all right. Like, I'm okay with it. But if there was something that was 10 times or 100 times cheaper, you bet I'll be using that to process transactions as well. So I assume that's when that occurs, that's when you have this huge shift away from traditional credit cards and all that, and then people do people still, if that happens, do people still pay with regular currency, or do you have to be paying with crypto at that point?
I'll give you a real life example on that of a company that started building their infrastructure about 4 or 5 years ago. They're based in Switzerland, and it would fit right into you building your websites. Okay. So the company's called Utrust, so utrust.io, so a Swiss-based company, and you can pay with a variety of different cryptos. I can't remember all of the ones, but let's just say the top 20 cryptos. And then you as a web developer could install, they've already done a WordPress plugin to be able to take payment in crypto on your website. So you can go put up the shopping cart, put it in there for crypto, pay in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, whatever you want. And then you as the business owner will get paid back 24 hours later in cash into your bank account. So you don't have to do any of the transactions.
So there's a conversion in between.
It's already done. They do all that for you, and they charge 1%. 1%. That's it. So that's even cheaper, nearly double, half as cheap again than the current fiat system. And that'll only get better. But the only thing is they only do it in British pounds, USD, and euro at the moment. But they'll go out to putting it back into other currencies as they move forward.
That's funny though too, isn't it? Because if I had the option to pay for something in cryptocurrency, I don't know if I would. I don't necessarily know if I would want to, because the value of these currencies is so all over the place. Then does that mean that if you sold something for, and I'm just making a number up, 100 Bitcoin, whatever. Let's say 1 Bitcoin. You bought something for 1 Bitcoin just to make it easy. But then, that 1 Bitcoin was worth $80,000 a few months ago, and now it's worth a fraction of that. So then does it risk you? Do you face some kind of financial risk yourself for actually using the Bitcoin to pay for things?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? And so some of that would, if you're using it for transactable goods and services, then there's also the tax implications that go with that. So you have to go on the ATO website, because they actually treat crypto as an asset right now. So it's not like a currency where so if you've bought it for say $10,000 and then you are going to sell it at $30,000, then you've got a capital gains tax in there as well. So I don't want to get into that. So go to the ATO website and look up crypto.
It's treated sort of like shares, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's treated just like that. Yeah. So whether that's going to change down the track and that's more as a currency, like some current countries are using it as a think it's El Salvador, South America anyway. I think it's El Salvador are using it as a currency now in their country. So it depends on the country as to what rules they make, whether it's an asset or a currency. Some countries are looking to bring it in because their fiat money's worth nothing, versus they look at Bitcoin as more stable. Even though it has its swings, it's more stable than some of their depreciative fiat currencies.
Are you saying what is that word you're saying? Fiat?
Yeah, fiat is like Australian dollar is a fiat currency.
Is that an acronym?
No. Just go look in fiat currency. So you go to pretty much type in fiat currency in Google.
As in FIAT.
FIAT.
A government-issued currency that is not backed by a commodity such as gold.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So every currency in the world now, all bar a couple, I think, are all fiat currencies. That got changed back in 1971, I think, when it was taken off the Nixon took it off the gold standard back in 1971, I think. So the currencies are not backed by anything now. It used to be backed by gold.
Fiat money gives central banks greater control over the economy because they can control how much money is printed.
Yes.
Most modern paper currencies, such as the US dollar, are fiat currencies. So that means that those currencies, if you had like $1 million in currency, you had to have $1 million worth of gold to back it up. Is that
correct? That's what it used to be before 1971. It was that. You used to have gold. Now there's some, without going off on a tangent, there are some countries that are looking to go back to that, but don't want to speculate.
You're right. Okay. Yeah, we're well and truly going down the rabbit hole here, aren't we?
Yeah. But that's probably why people are looking at cryptocurrencies as well, because if you've got money in the bank, basically your money's depreciating. You look at how much depreciation has happened to our currency this year and how much inflation has gone up to our dollar. You look at the inflation in America. I think they had 14% the first year Biden was in. It was 14% up to about halfway through the year. So if you had $100 in the bank, you've only got its only value is what 72 dollars instead of $100 after 18 months if you're American through inflation. So people are looking at crypto or gold and things like that as a better store of
something that's increasing in value rather than going down.
Or at least staying at parity.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The rate of change, and it's also interesting because you see, and I used to be seeing these articles a lot in my Google News feed about the attacks on. Well, mostly I've read about NFTs being stolen and things like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that I've never looked into it enough to know whether those have been stolen through some form of identity theft or if it's actually an attack on the blockchain infrastructure itself.
Yeah. Well, you brought up Solana before. Solana. Well, they got attacked. I think it's within this last month they've been attacked, and there was like $200 million taken. So they had some issues with their network. So some of the infrastructure has been around for some time. Some of the infrastructure is new, and with new infrastructure comes new challenges.
God, I would love to see what their I assume that some company provides insurance for them.
Yeah. Then so that's the key part too. I don't want to go down the cryptocurrency rabbit hole, but it's really important.
Let's go for it. We can talk about whatever we want, mate.
Cool. All right. I highly recommend people, if they're going to look at cryptocurrencies, the exchange that you're going to buy from, you got to look at a reputable company, and you got to look at your storage of your cryptocurrency. I think that's really important because and where you store it, who you store it with, whether it's got insurance, all of those things. When you said insurance, you can get insurance on your cryptocurrency, but you have to do it a certain way with certain companies. And then you're really looking at your long-term, risks of being able to make sure that everything's there because it's digital. If you had you had one of these and you're storing it on like a stick, which you can, you lose the stick, you lose your money. You get $1 million worth of in your super fund and it's sitting on a stick, and you lose the stick and you've lost your money. So it's really important that you look at where you store it. So there is platforms out there that can help support you with that and provide security, and they've got security with you know top companies in the world, Lloyd's of London and other things like that, and they can secure it. But you need to do your research, is what I'm trying to say, before you do anything.
You can understand why it scares people and why this stuff would take some people a long time to adopt, because it's so new, it's changing all the time. You hear scary stories, and
Yes.
it's kind of hard to understand, to get your head around it. Like, unless you're you, not so much if you're me, because I feel like I've just got my head around some of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, and
Yeah.
it's like every other day there's some new crypto thing going on. It's like, man,
Oh, yeah.
what's even going on here?
Yeah, I think that the big thing about crypto is when you look at it, does it have a use case?
Yeah.
Does it have a use case? What is the crypto going to be used for? And if it doesn't have a use case, if it's just like a utility where you're going to use it like for payment or something like that, there's some coins out there like that. If you're just going to use it for payment, why would someone want to use that coin versus Bitcoin, for example, that's been around for 13 years and got history? So I think so many people look at, the next big thing that's out there and say it's going to be Bitcoin. Is there another Bitcoin coming?
Hmm.
And they haven't got a use case for it. So a lot of those top 10, top 20 coins have all got use cases, which they're going to supply, something to the marketplace, which is provided with infrastructure. And so there's all those different platforms have got a use case, and it's looking at them and really having a look at their white paper or their blue paper, and really getting an understanding of what the coin is, what it's going to do, and get an understanding or talk to someone who's really good at crypto, so that they can explain and give you, share that information with you. I think that's critical before you go and educate yourself. That's what I'm trying to say. Educate yourself before you go and buy, if you are going to buy crypto.
The funniest, just when we were talking about NFTs before, did you hear about the guy that bought Jack Dorsey's, the NFT of Jack Dorsey's first ever tweet?
Okay, I missed that.
So Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter,
Yep.
had the first ever tweet. Obviously, some guy bought it for $2.9 million.
There you go.
And but now he has tried to sell it, and it's valued at less than $14,000.
Well, there you go. There's
On the article that I'm reading, they said that it's a reflection of the maturing of the NFT market.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you had the hype, back in the 2000s. We had that IT bubble as well. Same here. Everyone was looking at, well, I shouldn't say everyone, most people were looking at the NFT, in the photos and collectibles and all of those sort of things. But I think that's just the first stage. I think there's more stages coming where you'll be able to utilize the NFT space, but not so much for that. Still can if you want, but there'll be other use cases for NFTs. Like, for example, and this is not me, I'm just parroting Gary V here, talking about the ability to have like your NFT being your address, and that would be, say, your Facebook address, and then you've got all everything that you want available out there on the net. You can either make it private or public, and make that information available. But then the great part about having social media inside of the blockchain is it's going that whatever you put up there is going to stay. We've had situations in the last 2 years where if you put something up on in socials, and the socials company didn't like you, they would ban you or take you down. Well, the blockchain then gives you that opportunity for that information to stay up, because you now control it, and it's it's set up in the blockchain. And there's a few social platforms coming out right now, some that have been around for a couple of years, that are trying to do socials inside of the blockchain for that reason. So you put your videos up on YouTube. It's a little bit temperamental for the platform, and you're not going to lose it. So there's lots of other things that this can be used for, and I agree. People have paid exorbitant amounts for NFTs that are probably worth nothing, really.
And I sort of think that in some way, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of hype around NFTs when there's some really just a string of high profile sales of things that I thought were super stupid, to be honest.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the value of anything is determined by what somebody's willing to buy for it, isn't it? So I guess
Yeah.
that guy was taking a punt that Jack Dorsey's tweet NFT would be valued ultimately at more than $2.9 million.
Yes.
In the end, turns out nobody cares about Jack Dorsey's
No.
first tweet.
Too funny.
That
Too
is
funny.
hilarious. And how did you get into this space anyway? Did you like study computer science or something like
No.
that, or?
No, I'm actually the dumbest one in a smart team. So we engaged. We've got crypto specialists, blockchain specialists on our staff, and who are really up to date with what's going on. I'm the ideas person. I'm not the guy who writes the code for it. Yeah.
Hmm. And that's probably a good way to be. If you're
Yeah.
if you're the best person at doing what you guys do on the team, then you'd be doing all the work.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the smartest person when it comes to that. But I'm very blessed to have one of the guys on our team is amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, what did you like? Have you done this? You're like in terms of what you do at Barrana. Have you
Yeah.
done this your whole career, or?
I actually started out playing a country boy. Started playing footy, the favourite code of your wife, and then
That's
started.
AFL for anybody that
That's
doesn't know
AFL.
her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. West Coast versus Essendon. Yeah, I started there, and then I started my first business 32 years ago. I started in this space with websites and that about 15 years ago, and we started building software about 8 years ago, and then probably the last 3 or 4 years try to keep away from, ventured away from websites because there's so many people out there building them, and then we've more gone down the software route in the last 2 years. Then added blockchain code as another way to provide solutions.
Hmm. And what is there in your sort of space aside from blockchain? We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Does is there a lot of new stuff happening in your sort of software development space?
Yeah. Yes and no. There's lots of similar things where people look at it and go, okay, this is out there. I got to change this around a bit because that's what I want to do. And, they might change 10 or 20% and develop something that's different. There's lots of ideas out there. There's lots of people pushing boundaries. Um, we push the boundaries in a small way, but sort of stay in our lane because one thing that I have realised when you head down that area of trying to reinvent the wheel, there is that element of mystery. You don't know what's at the other end of that channel or how long it's going to take, and it makes it really difficult sometimes. So, we've sort of got our bread and butter, but we also at the same time have taken on some projects that have pushed us and stretched us, and I think that's how you grow as well. As a business owner, you don't grow by sitting on the sidelines and watching everything go by getting in the field and pushing yourselves and stretching yourselves. And we're certainly a different team from 2 years ago as far as experience and some of the things that we have, projects that we've taken on, than where we are. We're so much better for it right now.
What are some notable? Are there any kind of notable projects that you've worked on that you can talk about without an NDA?
Yeah. I'll talk about one in particular. And I started talking about that earlier. We're working with a guy right now. I'm not going to say his name or his project right yet because he hasn't quite launched it, but it will be launched within about 2 months. So he decided about a year ago that he was looking for a particular software out in the market to make his task management really simple. and he tried so many different softwares, but he couldn't get it where he just wanted it really simple and easy. He wanted the ability to be able to just quickly, because our brains are so full with so many different things. He just wanted to be able to get it down to whatever device he was on. And he wanted to build it for himself. And because he couldn't find anything that was out in the market, so he started with, I'm going to build this for myself. And as he's gone along, he's gone, hang on, I've chatted to so many of my colleagues in business, and they're like, oh, well, I want that as well. I want to use that as well. So he started showing the prototypes around, and next thing you know, he's got a whole stack of people that want to actually use this. So we started out, we were going to build a web application, but now we've built like an iOS and an Apple iPad. We built it across all the codes, but it was all done under one. So it's it should MVP in about 2 months. We're just sorting out the payment solution, and just getting all the databases connected and getting it working and launching it on the app stores and be ready to roll.
Interesting. Well, well now I really want to know what it is. You have to tell me once it's out, because I want to.
I'll tell you. Yeah. So
cool.
I think it's a really simple tool that you could use, and then he's going to eventually build a commercial version of that, so that you can work with teams with it as well.
Yeah.
So and it all come from an idea of his, of something that he wanted for himself. Yeah, just to be able to make it simple.
Well, it's a good rule, isn't it?
Out there.
Yeah.
We use Google, and the Google tasks is but this in his world, that's too hard for the average person. So he wanted something even simpler. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? And you said it earlier that you want to work on stuff where you're actually solving a problem, and that if your business can solve a problem, you're probably going to have some people that'll pay you for that service or that product.
Yeah, I think that's important. Otherwise, we get bored. We get bored because we don't grow, we don't develop, and your team in business doesn't grow and develop either. I think putting it back to sport, it takes you a lot of effort to go from the little leagues to the big leagues, and it's compounded one day at a time and stretching yourself. Same thing in business. I think it's important that we stretch ourselves and put ourselves out of our comfort zone at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Darren, I just realized that we've been going for almost 40 minutes.
Have we? Cool.
I was looking at the clock and it said 16:44, and I was like, oh, we've only been going for 16 minutes, but I didn't realize that was the time. And then I'm looking at the recorder, it's like, 40 minutes is coming up. So we've probably, blockchain was awesome, because I think, well, for my own benefit anyway, good to talk to somebody who's actually on the front line working on that sort of stuff. So that's been really good to pick your brain on that stuff. Appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
And thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come on here. For anybody else that's watching, again, stay tuned for the next episode. We will have another guest on in another area of marketing, business, what have you, something interesting with a unique perspective on a topic for us to talk about. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.